Hi guys, Dave, your Jiu-Jitsu uncle here again, and welcome to another episode of JitsChats. And in this episode, I want to justify and try to convince you to spend more time on close guard and at most half guard if you are a little bit older, if you consider yourself unathletic, if you have short, stumpy limbs like I do, or you have a bit of a belly, don't have flexibility, whatever the reason is. If you don't look like the prototypical athlete, I think going with close guard and half guard type of games will elevate your game and speed up your progress in overall jiu-jitsu faster than anything else based on my experience. If you look at the modern jiu-jitsu game, especially in no-gi, the meta or the general game that is popular these days involve a lot of pressure and efficiency based leverage and mechanical advantage to tire out the person as much as possible, right? And that kind of game plan, and of course, if you're looking at the competitive side of things, the sports side of things, regardless of whether it's jiu-jitsu or not, it always will favorable the young, the athletic, the physiologically advantageous type, right? The body frame. It's just like when you create a video game character, there is a certain advantage to be of certain height, weight, limb size, etc. But unfortunately, a lot of us do not fall into that realm. That's the reason why there's only like a single digit percentage of top athletes in the world. But unfortunately, we all try to train like them or to be like them. And there's nothing wrong with that aspiration, but it's not efficient. Especially if your goal is not to be a competitor, if your goal is try to get better at this craft at your own, in your own terms, at your own timeline. If you've been exposed long enough, then you will benefit with a slower type of game. And by slower type of game, I do not mean stalling. I do not mean just pinning the person down or just grabbing, holding on to the person. What I mean is choose a game style, and I'm talking purely on a person playing from guard, from supine, right? Because that is, if you're a beginner, most likely you'll be at the bottom. You're not going to be playing on top. You're not going to be the one passing, initiating subs and things like that. You're going to be the one being passed. You're the one being pinned down. You're the one trying to survive. That's where this video is focusing on. So that means you are going to be the bottom most of the time, and playing a type of open guard, a complex new age style of play wherein there's a lot of like K guards and the lahivas, reverse lahivas. Don't worry about it if you don't understand any of this mumbo jumbo. Anything that pretty much involves like you separating the distance between you and your partner with various type of arm and leg configurations, right? The challenge of that is, one, again, the athleticism part. Two, the physiological part, meaning for somebody like me who have shorter legs, my full frame with full extension of my arms and legs will not be sufficient to do much to stop a taller, lengthier, lankier person to reach my head, my hips, etc., etc. So there's a lot of like challenges to solve playing that game. That's where I think if you strip everything back and go back, it doesn't matter what level you are in, especially if probably you're under purple, under 3 years or so training, and you're kind of struggling with keeping up with the younger people, the more athletic people, the more explosive people. Instead of playing a game where there is space in between and there's a lot of variables that can come into play, play something closer. That's where close guard and half guard comes in. So let's start with half guard, because half guard is half, right? It's halfway between open, halfway between closed. And I think there's no better source of just general game style description that is easy to understand than Mr. Bernardo Faria. He explained it how when he was still young, when he was still like a, I think, yellow belt or orange belt or whatever belt system they had way back in their time, is that he never really he played a lot of close guard when he was new, and then eventually everybody kind of caught up, and he tried to play all the open guard like spider guard and things like that. He couldn't understand or couldn't get it to work, and finally he figured half guard was something that he gravitated into, and he became like one of the most well-known half guard players in the world. Uh, But regardless, the reason why half guard is something worth exploring at first is because if you're again, we're all talking about if you're at the bottom, okay? So forget about being on top. If you're at the bottom, catching somebody in some form of a close guard, whether you clamp your legs close or it's just one leg over the other or whatever that might be, is actually pretty high, because a lot of times when the person on top tries to pass you, they will be sticking their leg in between two of your legs, right? It's kind of like in this configuration. So you're lying down, the person will be stepping in to initiate some sort of a pass. That pretty much happens all the time. Even if they're trying to go outside your leg, like so, it's normal for you to kind of use your leg to kind of grab them, and you end up in a half guard. So that's something that, from a probability point of view, that happens so often that it's really worth spending a lot of time to see what you can do there. Second thing with half guard, there is technically one like established rule when you're playing half guard, is you have to be on your side as solidly as possible to not getting flattened. I think building that awareness of always being on your side and only go flat like when you decide to go the other way is such a critical body movement and spine alignment spine alignment sensitivity that a lot of guard players do not have. And once you get that, understanding how weight shifts, how you can manipulate the top person to move in either direction of you, is super crucial and super helpful when you reach the time when you can play the other guards. And also, half guard is half. It's half of being smashed, but it's also your half of being able to attack. Whether it's to take somebody's back, to wrestle up and do a takedown, do a submission and everything, it's almost like a 50-50 chance for both of you guys to succeed. So again, it's a very efficient guard to play in, to learn, and to find a way to capitalize, because there's just so many ways to go about it. You can go over the person, you can go under the person, you can go to the back, you can wrestle up, all those kind of things come into play, as opposed to playing a newer, like let's say you play a reverse de la Hiva, for example. A lot of times people kind of know that there's only a couple of directions that you will most likely go. You either go underneath them to kind of roll over to lift one leg up, or you try to throw them over their head. That's it's relatively more predictable, especially if, let's say, if you're playing in a system where leg locks are not as prominent or as beneficial to do. There are a lot of open guards that offer you a lot of options, but it's a little bit more predictable as to where you can go, unless the guard itself offers a lot of freedom of movement. Like there's a lot of gaps for you to kind of work with. Like for example, if you play spider guard, there's so many different variants of spider guard because of grips and things like that. But again, that complicates things so much, right? That's why I don't want to go there. But in half guard, your goal is relatively simple. Stay on the side as much as you can. Try to get the underhook as often as you can. Prevent yourself from getting flattened. That's pretty much it. And you try to keep their weight off of you from the top. You can either keep them on your front side, way past your front, or keep them on the other side, to sweep them to the other side. I find that to be a lot more easy to understand, that a lot easier to process as a slower person. But at least it narrows down like what guard you can try to get better at for the next 3-6 months or so, before you explore or spend too much time in the complicated open guard meta. Which brings us to the next point, close guard. Close guard probably is one of the first things you ever saw when you signed up to join a BJJ gym, right? You start off with a close guard and you go from there, right? Your instructor will teach you how to do basic close guard stuff from the bottom, kimuras, hip bump sweeps, scissor sweeps, arm bar from guard, etc., etc. Sure. But surprisingly, nobody really uses it that much. Like as soon as people get their second, third stripe in white belt, a lot of times people will start especially in no-gi, right? People will start doing all the fancy stuff and abandon close guard altogether. And in my opinion, that is quite unfortunate. In gi, there's a very, very clear benefit of having close guard because of the lapels, because of the friction, and all that stuff. But people kind of miss the point why it's so much more effective in no-gi. It's because of posture control and being able to keep the person in your center of periphery, right? Your center. So yeah, so the main advantage of obviously being in a close guard is the ability to manipulate your opponent inside your guard, meaning you move your legs, you move your hips, you move them as well. That doesn't happen in open guards that easily, right? There's a lot of like inefficiencies doing that in open guard because they're so far away from you, right? But in close guard, they're in between your legs. You can use the strong hips, thighs, and hamstring strength that you have to supplement your upper body strength and even your torso, right? Your core that can control the whole thing. What I realized after a while was that people, especially in no gi, skip close guard a lot because obviously controlling posture in no gi is a lot harder because of the lack of sleeves, the lack of the collar, and things like that. And they're only relying on the neck or armpit control. But a lot of times it's really a matter of not understanding how to hold the posture correctly, like which part of the head to hold correctly, which part of the shoulder or elbow to manipulate to have the efficiency to keep the person down, and also, when to use your hips and knees to off balance a person. Unfortunately, a lot of times the bad habits or the crutch that gi provides because of the friction, because of the fabric, fails to develop or transfer that skill. So the availability of all those grips and all those friction-based control is so non-transferable to people who do not spend enough time to understand why it works, right? So if you understand biomechanically how to break the curvature of the spine down or which angle to push or to pin to hold the person at a certain angle, whether it's gi or no gi, you should be able to do that with a lot more efficiency. So being able to play close guard is such a powerful weapon to have because it shuts down so many things that the other person can do until they can posture up or until they can really like misalign themselves. They have to have really, really advanced and good base to be able to get out of your close guard, right? Because standing up is technically the most efficient way to get out of the close guard. But going from being on your knees to standing up upright with good posture is not really something that people instinctively can develop. It requires a lot of mastery to be able to do that. Your black belt in your gym, guys who have done this for a while will probably look like they're doing magic if they can just easily stand up in your guard, Sao Paulo their way out of the close guard, and things like that. But that requires so much skill and confidence on being able to stay on a good base despite misaligning themselves to get out of the guard. I can guarantee you that probably 90% of the people that you roll with your gym, in your gym, will not have that. That means it offers you so much opportunity to just wait, right? To wait for opportunities. That's where the close guard, in my opinion, really helps you as you develop your game as a less athletic person. It trains your timing. It trains your awareness of when opportunities come for you to do certain moves. You don't have to force it. Personal story, one of the things that I always struggled with close guard was, just like most people, one, using short legs as an excuse because I can't wrap my legs around the other people. Two, forcing the submission or the sweep from a close guard and it doesn't seem to work and I abandon it. The person just postures up, pushes me down and gets out, starts stack passing me, etc., etc. Those are extremely common things, but over the years I realized that the reason why a lot of my close guard stuff didn't work was because I was forcing it when the time wasn't right. It's the same with any other guard and any other attack, but it is more crucial, and then it's more nuanced when you're doing it in such close quarters. Nowadays, like if I play close guard, for example, if I know I want to like do a pendulum sweep or flower sweep to them, I don't force myself to dive in to get that sweep because that's so frigging obvious. Like as soon as I go there, they're just gonna, pin my leg down or just like push me back down, and that kills it. If I try to scissor sweep them, and as soon as I turn my hips to one side, they know they're gonna scissor sweep you, and they know that you have to open your guard, and they just pass you. Yeah, or they just sit back and just negate the guard. If I try to like do a arm bar from close guard, for example, they know I have to open my guard to make that spin, and they just yank their arm out or stack me or whatever that might be. Those are things that the mistakes that I personally have done over the years, and I thought because close guard wasn't for me, but the past couple of years or so that I've been playing close guard more, even in without the grips of a gi, I've been hitting a lot more stuff that I have never been able to hit as a white belt and blue belt, such as arm bars and triangles from guard. Is simply because you're once you get the concept of how to hold the person correctly and force yourself slowly to cut angles, to force them to only do one predictable thing, it's easy for them to be, let's say, they're inside your guard and they're doing everything right with their elbows closed in and things like that. And you start to like grab their arm to kind of pass them to get an arm bar, hopefully, right? If I just try to bring it over, just like a lot of instructional step-by-step will tell you to do, it is so obvious. No idiot's going to let you do that. But if I'm at the bottom and I'm, like right now, I'm the person attacking, somebody else is doing the close guard stuff, and they're gradually moving their body, like during all the movement and stuff, trying to move their body as I'm trying to keep my elbows tight to my wrist, and they're slowly inching their center line past my elbow line, for example, I probably wouldn't notice it that much, to the point that I've already completed probably like 60-70% of the move before I actually execute the move. Right, so that increases the odds so much more. Let's say I'm in the bottom close guard right now, and I want to do a pendulum sweep on them. Right, if I want to do I always get confused with flower and pendulum sweep, whatever. The one where you go under and you sweep them over, right? If I just going to try that, it's going to get negated pretty quickly. But if I keep on holding their posture down, and as I do that, I know that they're trying to posture back up, but every time they posture back up, I shift myself a little to the side. I shift myself a little to the side. But I'm still keeping that posture down, right? I'm still, to them, my objective is still just pinning them down to my chest. But every single time they move, I'm actually moving closer to their leg, to the point that I can see or I can feel that I can watch their leg trying to post up several times, and I time the right timing to do so as they try to posture back up again. It allows me to go in, and that facilitates a sweep a lot simpler. And I think being able to build that awareness of what the other person does is super helpful. Not to mention, you stop a lot of spazzing going on. You stop a lot of like knees hitting your face and all that kind of stuff, and most likely you'll be able to end up executing the move that you want to do. And at worst, the nice thing with close guard, if you fail, you just go back to close guard. That's pretty much it, because they're still inside your legs, right? So I hope that was helpful. I don't want to dive too much into like instructionals and things like that, because that's not the point of these JitsChats episode. It's more of conceptual ideation, mental thinking. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you incorporate more close guard and half guard stuff in your training, and let me know if it helped you and whether or not there is a preference that you like when you're playing close guard and half guard. That's all I have. Have a good day. Bye.